Bert Oliva's Mastermind Circle.
I want to welcome you to a special Mastermind Circle interview where we get the privilege to interview and enter the life of Elizabeth Fago Smith. I am truly excited about this interview because she gets to teach us all so much. Make sure to take notes and enjoy the session.
Bert Oliva is an international orator. He speaks around the world about his experiences and teaches humanology, the scientific study of human potential. He has enchanted audiences all over the world, showing them the power of mind over matter.
He's one of the most talented speakers out here, and I highly recommend him to any type of book.
The more prepared you are, the luckier you'll be.
He is the world-renowned authority on leadership and human behavior.
Mr. Bert Oliva.
Bert Oliva!
He's considered the voice of inspiration and motivation. Today he'll pass his knowledge on to all of us.
For over 2 decades, Bert Oliva has touched the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. Bert has a dedicated social media following and an impressive online influence few possess, enabling him to communicate with audiences he has touched near and far.
I think he's one of the greatest motivators out there.
The thing I love about Bert is he's on stage and he gives his heart every single time.
He has developed many programs, recorded audio CDs, and written books, all of which to help those ranging from individuals to corporate and Fortune 500 companies. He has dedicated his life to speaking all over the globe and met some of the most influential and powerful people in the world.
Okay, let's go.
He has also coached highly successful business executives and politicians.
Normally seen as impossible.
I believed it and I did it.
An infectious motivator.
So get ready to learn tools that will help you tap into your potential.
Pay attention, this is real stuff.
Get ready to have an experience you won't soon forget. Please help me welcome Bert Oliva.
Elizabeth Marie Fago is an accomplished healthcare executive and entrepreneur dedicated to transforming the quality and delivery of care for the elderly. She is a versatile innovator who combines passion with business savvy to improve lives while delivering bottom-line results. Elizabeth has been repeatedly recognized for her contributions and expertise by the highest levels of the public and private sector, including multiple presidential and gubernatorial appointments. And tonight she's here to share her knowledge with us. So let's welcome Miss Elizabeth Fago.
I'm really excited for the opportunity, and not only am I interviewing her, I'm interviewing her in her beautiful home. Like we always do in the Mastermind Circle, we want to find out how not only to become successful, but how it is that you live a certain lifestyle and what it is you have to do. So when they look at something like this beautiful place you live in, and they read up on what it is you're doing and so forth, like, oh my God, she's always been like this. So where did you grow up? Where did the whole story start? Where was it that, I know you guys are immigrants, you know, so tell us a little bit more about everything, like the beginning.
Buffalo, New York. Okay. My grandparents came from a place called Cortali, Italy. It's in the mountains in southern Italy, in Calabria. And both families, the Fagos and the Fronteras, came from the same town. I've been there. My grandmother, I think, was 14 or 15. She had her first son in Italy. When she came here, I think she may have been 17 or 18. My grandfather was here prior to her arrival, and my mother's parents immigrated pretty much the same time, and they all went to Pennsylvania.
Any reason why Pennsylvania?
I think that's where they sent them. When they went to Ellis Island, you go here, you go there, wherever. They went to western Pennsylvania and settled there. Actually, it was a little town called Mayberg, and Kane, Sheffield, that whole western area. My parents' families knew each other, and my mother and father met when they were young, but they really didn't date or anything till my father came to my mother's hometown. I think she was 17, and told her she wanted to marry her. And within 30 days, he left her a convertible car, beautiful.
What was he doing back then?
He was in the construction business, sewer and water line business with his brothers in the Buffalo area at that point. So I think my mom was 18 or 19 when she moved to Buffalo, married my father, and started their family. And my father was a very successful sewer and water line contractor, and also evolved into land development. In I think it was 68 or 69, he had built a city.
City where?
In Buffalo.
Okay.
And he put it all together, and they had built the golf course and arranged all this. And it was very typical of what was going on in Weston, Virginia, and Columbia, Maryland. And he modeled that and sold it to Prudential Life Insurance in 68. Made a very sizable amount of money and for that time, and moved to Florida and started the same thing.
And why Florida?
Well, he came.
Well, obviously, one of the reasons always is the weather.
Yeah, Buffalo is pretty brutal.
Yes.
Okay, so they came down on vacation to visit my in-laws, and my father fell in love with it. I mean, they had visited Florida all the time, but they were always in Miami Beach. So they came to Palm Beach, and my mother went to Worth Avenue. My father went out shopping in Western County, which is now Wellington, and he bought 4,000 acres of land.
Wow.
And he was building another city, which is now Wellington. So he was a very early pioneer. He had a company, it was called Palm d'Oro, and you can see all the Italian influence, palms of gold. He was really quite a character.
How many children did?
They had four. 3 boys and myself. I was second.
You're the
I was the only girl.
So the children were already born when you guys
Oh yeah,
came to Florida?
I was 18, 19. My brother is a year older than he was a year older than I am, and I have 2 younger brothers that are 4 and 8 years younger than I am.
So how was Palm Beach back in the 70s? You were 18.
It was fabulous. There was no one here. Summers, it was dead. Nothing was open. I mean, literally, I think the breakers may have been open, but I can't remember. PGA Boulevard was a 2-lane road. I mean, it was a dirt road when we first started coming down here. So it was really in its infancy. 95 wasn't even here. I mean, it's shut, I think, at PGA Boulevard. So it was really a land of great opportunity. So he bought this land and they moved here. And that was 1969. And in 1974, he passed away at the age of 48.
Wow.
So my mom really had never done anything in her life other than raise her children. And she was faced with this situation, and she was very ill-advised by counsel. There was a lot of shenanigans going on. And
what age you were now, more or less?
She was 44.
No, you.
I was like 23, 24 when my dad died.
But you also mentioned in one of the articles that your father said, you need to take care of the family.
Well, he got sick, and he had a blood infection, and it was called subacute bacterial endocarditis. And when he got this, he was in the middle of selling the land in Wellington, and he was working very diligently. And every night he would come home exhausted, fevered, and every night he'd go into these 102, 103 fevers. Oh. And I can't tell you how many times I went to the doctor with him, and I said, listen, there's something wrong. He's got a fever, and the doctor argued, he's fine, because during the day he would be, he'd take a aspirin, fever would drop down, and at night it would come back. I said, there's something wrong with him, and he literally almost threw us out of his office. Well, by the time they found him, he was so sick, he was in congestive heart failure, fluid in the lungs.
The infection?
Oh yeah, and ate the aorta valve, 3/4 of the aorta valve. So they built him up, and they knew they had to do open heart surgery, which this was 74. It was almost, very few places did it. He went to St. Francis Hospital in Miami, which no longer is in existence, and he had the surgery. And he came through it beautifully, but he started to get a staph infection. And I had to go to Buffalo to get his medical records. There's no faxes, there's no FedEx,
right.
You couldn't, there was no computers.
Yeah, no internet.
So, no internet. So I flew to Buffalo and turned around and came back the same day and got the records. And that night, I went to see him in the hospital when I got back with my grandmother. My mother had gone back to Palm Beach to, get home after 2 weeks down in this hospital. And I went over there, and I walk in the room, and he says to my grandmother, "Ma, wait outside, I want to talk to Betsy." Now, if you know anything about Italian hierarchy, it's the man, number one is his mother, number two is his daughter, and number three is his wife. And it was pretty much that way. My mother had pretty much ruled, but my grandmother really was very important. When he said that, I was like, "Dad," he goes, "I need to talk to you." So I said, "Okay." I'm a kid, and I absorbed everything he ever taught me for all those years, but I was still spoiled rotten. All right, I was a little princess. I worked because I loved to work. I loved making money. So I was in the real estate.
You grew up watching.
Yeah, and I worked for him. I did all sorts of things. So, to me, work ethic was not even a problem. So I go in there, and he's told me he was tired, and he just didn't have any energy left.
Oh.
And he said to me that I have to take care of my mother. And basically, he told me he was dying. Without saying the words, he said it. And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Dad," he goes, "Listen, just listen to me. I need to tell you." So he knew he was dying. And he told me, "I have to take care of my mother." He says, "I know it's difficult. I know she's tough, but I love her, and I want you. She's a good woman." And I said, "Okay." And he says, and told me to get a divorce. And I mean, father never tells a daughter that.
Well, not in Italian.
Not in the Italian family. And he says, "You will never accomplish in life what you're destined to accomplish with that man at your side."
Well.
And so many other things. So it was like, wow. And then the next day he died. So for me, that was an incredible gift. It was an incredible burden, but it was an incredible gift.
Yeah, having that moment.
Yeah, to have that moment. And I had an older brother, and I had two younger brothers. And my brother Tommy, who you saw in the video doing the breakdancing, was 12. So it was like a real tragedy. And Tommy and I were so close to my dad, and we were so much like him. So
did you get a divorce?
Not right away.
But you thought about it?
I did. I got it. Well, I got back. Well, you have to understand, Stephen Walzak, my husband at the time, and the father of my two children, from the second grade, he was in love with me, and we were friends. So he never would give up. And, he came back, and he was there when my father died. And, it was a terrible time. I mean, I literally had a knot in my stomach that was beyond anything you could imagine. It was like, it was horrible. And, I needed a lot of support at that time, but it also, stabilization. I couldn't change immediately. He died in '74. Stephanie was born in '76, and I divorced him right after that.
And meanwhile, was that when you were doing real estate? Or so you were in the real estate business, and is it because your father was?
He was a land developer, so
I got,
he urged me to get a real estate license, which I did. I actually took the course with him, and because he wanted me to make sure I would get it, and I did. And see, a lot of times I'd go to the beach, but I got the license, and I loved it. But I was always in commercial real estate. I very rarely sold houses. I sold a few, but nothing. I was more in commercial.
It wasn't making the money that you thought.
Well, and it wasn't even the money part. It was the, you're dealing with emotions in a house, and I'm dealing with bottom lines and numbers in commercial real estate. So that's what I gravitated to, because that's what I liked. So.
You did that for how many years?
I'm still licensed. Still have a brokerage license. In 1981, I would have to say, was the pivotal career.
First turning point.
Yeah, the pivotal career turning point. I sold a nursing home for one of my clients, a shopping center guy.
Okay.
And he called me and he said, I want to buy a nursing home. I said, okay. So I found Darcy Hall and put the deal together, and it was literally like a light switch went off. I'm walking around and I said, this is the future. It was like, you know, the angels coming to me, which they do.
And you didn't know anything about the industry?
No, nothing.
It was just, but
Nothing,
something told
nothing,
you this
nothing.
is it.
So I decided, that's it. I am going to concentrate in the healthcare business. I gave up all my, not all of them, but pretty much all of them, my commercial guys, and I concentrated in long-term care and senior housing.
So what's the first step? I mean,
I taught myself the business for 10 years as a broker.
and back then there's no internet and everything, so
Nothing.
what did you do? Hands
Phone calls, you know, searching, whatever you could search, whatever, you know, just background.
Now at this time you're divorced.
I'm divorced.
Okay, so you're not married
I'm the mother
again.
of
2 children.
2 children.
Okay.
And I have, you know, this new career. And I met, in the between this, I met Joey's father,
Okay.
and that was a very short, brief marriage, and not a good situation, and divorced.
But you're still not struggling though. You know, you had just...
Well, when my dad died, my mother lost everything. She literally gave it away. She gave, you know, it was a $40 million estate, literally gone for $20,000.
Because?
Because she got really
taken advantage of
by the lawyers and some of the business partners. And it was really a bad situation. And I had a choice, and they wanted all of us to sign off. And I said no. And I had a choice to declare my mother incompetent or just let it go. And I made the choice to just let it go, because I knew that was, they'd never enjoy that money.
Because a lot of times, like as for us, I mean, we came from nothing, and we have built everything that we have throughout the years. But coming from a $40 million estate,
right? Oh, listen, I grew up in a mansion. I grew up very wealthy, okay, and then nothing, zero, nothing. Big transition. I mean, huge transition. But okay, go to work. Well, that's what we did. And so, you know, I had to make my way. I couldn't go to Dad and get the rent payment or the car payment or any of those. I had to do it. There was no more. So
by the time you had Joey and you have 3 children, second marriage, you're still not doing great. You're just doing a little bit better than average.
I always did well in real estate. So I was always making $200,000-300,000 a year, which is good money.
Which is great.
Great money, especially back then. So I was making money, but I'm spending it because I had a lifestyle that I was trying to stay with.
Which
you know,
hasn't
private
changed
school.
much.
Oh no, but no. I mean, there was a lot of struggle. Sometimes I didn't own a home. Sometimes I struggled to pay the rent, or even keep the utilities on, or food. You know, if there was a dry year, don't forget, I went through the '74 recession, the '81 recession, and those were major in Florida. They were huge. So there were times when it was like, okay. I mean, I didn't know where I would turn to, but I always put my kids in the best schools. I always clothed them properly, and I fed them. So everything else would just have to come. And you know, if you're going to be a salesperson, if you don't present properly, no one's going to believe in you, especially a woman in a man's world. And healthcare was a man's world.
Especially back then. It was even worse.
It was beyond worse. There was 2 public companies, and I am breaking all the barriers. I am not only that glass ceiling, I am plowing through it. I didn't know any different. I don't have a college degree. You know, I wasn't told I couldn't. No, I don't know what the definition of no is. Doesn't fit in me. I'm doing it. You know, I don't look at it that way. So I just persevered.
And of course, I mean, with all due respect, you're a beautiful woman. So at that time, I'm sure they didn't even take you serious at times.
No, they want to, you know.
So you had to break those barriers too.
You know, they either want to sleep with you or hold you down. You know, and
Well, when you open your mouth, they were like, "Wait a minute,
Yeah.
this woman is smart."
Well, and you know, it took that, and there were some pivotal moments. So so I went through this whole period of the 80s, just keep my head down, focused, and keeping food on the table, and just learning the business. I had to learn the business, and I did.
When you say learn your business, what part of it?
Operationally, I had to understand. So when you sell a piece of land, what's it zoned for? What can you put on it? How much? You know, what's the cost? What's the cost per unit? Those are easy variables that you could just put in there because you know what you're dealing with. Healthcare, there's Medicare, Medicaid.
And the laws are always changing.
At each state's different. There's long-term care. There's assisted living. There's senior housing. There's SSI, which is government pay for like an assisted living, and today it's totally different. So I taught myself that, and when the guy that owned the one property that I sold, they became like the third largest operators in the country, and the guy just really was blown away by my intelligence and my just pure my drive. Mm-hmm. He was like, wow. So we became pretty friendly, and they got into a lot of trouble when the tax laws changed in '86, and I became their broker of record. So here I am, the third largest company in the country, which was called National Heritage, no longer exists. I became their broker. They had to sell everything. I did. And anyone that would call for a property, they were referred to me. So I'm doing deals all over the country, and this is like huge. Well, it lasted about a year and a half, and they got ousted. The government came in, I don't know exactly how it happened, but they lost control of everything, and the banks took over.
So you also were involved with the politics.
Yeah.
Even from back in the day, because...
Well, I became involved then because you have to. Very much so, because you have to understand that in healthcare, you can't forecast beyond a year because every year they changed the rates. And if you didn't lobby, and there was no lobby for long-term care. I mean, hospitals, but I wasn't in the hospital business.
Right.
So, yes, I became involved, but that evolved.
There was a term, Nixonettes?
That was when I was
That's what I'm saying.
in Buffalo.
It started from the beginning.
Yeah, well, my mother-in-law got me involved in that.
And what was the term again?
Nixonettes.
Nixonettes.
Yeah, we've traveled around New York State in buses with white go-go boots and with banners.
But that's what turned you on into politics,
Yeah.
besides the business. And usually things happen in your life, you don't realize what's happening.
Yeah.
But later on, 15 years later, you're like, wait a minute, now I know I did that and I liked it.
That
and it all
was
tied
Irene
in.
Walczak, Stephen Walczak, my first husband's mother, was very political, and she really taught me a lot. I mean, she was a dynamic woman, and very much in the politics stage. So
now you're doing pretty well, and you're in politics because you have to get involved, and now you know a lot about the healthcare industry. And what was the next step? Like, what was the next turning point after that?
Well, the gentleman we were speaking of, he asked me, about 2 years later, he contacted me, and he goes, I'm doing a deal, would you be interested in getting involved? And I said, sure. So we met for lunch, and he told me that he's got this not-for-profit, and he'd like me to go on the board, and it's going to buy the facilities, and he'd manage them. And I said, sounds great. Okay, so we met, and the board consisted of people that I had met through him, but it was really under his control. Well, when we went to do the deal, the accounting firm said, it won't work, we can't give you an approval letter because you control the board. Everyone on that board, they were telling him, worked for you, other than me. So and the deal couldn't close. And this was going to be like, I don't know, $10,000 a month for me, which would have been great because I could have paid my rent, my office rent. It would have been a good base for me to continue doing other stuff. So I looked at we're at this table, and there's like 20 people, all men at the table in Atlanta, and mostly lawyers. I said, so if I get another 501c3 not-for-profit, can we do this? And they go, yeah. And I go, well, yes or no? And they said yes. And they were like, okay, sweetie. I said, well, I know of one. I think I can get the people to resign. And I can become, and I said, I'm fine. They go, absolutely. As long as you have a board that's unaffiliated with the this gentleman. I said, okay. And they're very skeptical. I said, give me till Monday. Well, I showed up Monday and I had it.
Yeah, but before you showed up Monday, you already knew you can close
Well,
this
I
deal?
had sold them a deal and they were floundering.
Okay.
So I called them and I said, listen, you guys can't do this anymore. Give it to me. And you can't buy a 501c3 because it's a public interest. Right. I said, give it to me, and I helped them get financing. And I arranged financing for them. They resigned, I took over, and we went and we closed the deal.
Were they in shock when you showed up?
When I came in, it was like,
she did it.
Who the hell are you? And I just said, I'm all about business. Let's just get this deal done. And we did. And the guy goes in, does the deal with me, manages it. 9 months later, I get a letter from the government. I owed him $1 million, Medicare. And I go, for what? So I called the guy. And it turns out that he was routing the money from Medicare directly to his account in Dallas and misappropriating the funds. So I immediately sat down with Medicare. They saw what was going on, terminated him. I didn't fire him. I rerouted the money. And we struggled. And I literally had 3 buildings fully with, I think, 420 units, patients in them, employees, no money, and payroll due, and utilities. I flew up there, met with the chief nursing officer in Savannah, the Savannah facility, and Terry, and I said, Terry, I tell you what, you take care of these employees and get them to take care of the patients. I'll make sure the money comes. And I did. We struggled. We struggled.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's usually the part where I read that it's like 20 years of struggling.
Oh my God.
It wasn't like,
I mean, I had people's lives. I had all these employees that were going to lose jobs, all these patients. The patients you could move to other facilities, but it was these jobs that these people had had forever. You know, when you go to work in a nursing home, it's a different animal. You know, you're there, you're a lifer. You're there because of this. It's not because of this, because you can get the same amount of money working at Burger King. So you got to really have a passion for this.
You got to love it.
You got to love it. And they were taking care of family members, relatives. So it was really a very pivotal moment. And at the same time, 1980, my brother died in 81. He's sick, and he died of AIDS. And when we took over that company that gave me the 501c3, right, they had a facility in Long Beach, California. The bank, you know, I didn't want it. They wanted it. I didn't want it. The bank, the trustees said, you have to take it. So you don't argue with U.S. Trust or the bonding company, Eaton Vance. I said, okay. So I flew there to Long Beach, California. My son, Paul, went to Virginia to get the books and records. He calls me and says, oh, there's nothing here and there's nothing in the bank. I get there. The sheriff's there serving me subpoena after subpoena for money's due. And I have 160 people. It's Friday. It's lunchtime. There's no food, and it's payroll, and there's no money. And I'm like, I pick up the phone, and I called Eaton Vance, the bonding company. I said, you have exactly 30 minutes to wire me $250,000.
That's how much it was?
Oh, it wasn't enough. I said, or I'm on the next plane to give you the keys, because this ain't, I told them. I said, here's the pay, da, da, da. So they did. They sent the $250. I didn't ask for enough. So there was $100,000 due to the IRS withholding. Now, that's where I would be liable even if I had nothing to do with it. So I called the guy, the agent, and I said, I'll give you $95,000. And I have the 5, but I don't want to give it to you because I don't want you to release the lien, because I want you to hold up all the creditors. he hemmed it on, and I said, please. I said, I have lives at stake, all these employees, and he went along with it, which was really cool. Okay, so he knew I was on.
That's a great strategy, though.
Yeah, it was. Well, the creditors could have got together and shut me down, and I knew that we couldn't let that happen. I didn't have the money to pay them all, because the $250,000 was not enough money. So that I'm coming along, little by little, and I keep getting hit with subpoenas for monies due. And the governor of California stopped sending the reimbursements checks because they didn't balance the budget for like 4 months. They sent me IOUs. Well,
That doesn't pay the bills.
how do you do this? So I had a factor in New York, and I just said, send them the IOUs. And so I went from owing this factor $200,000 to over $1 million, and I get a phone call on a Friday, like 3-4 months later, and this guy, Steve Huffenberg's on the phone, and he was screaming at me and using the F word, and it's going on and on. And I have the phone out here. You owe me $1 million. And I said, are you done? And he goes, yeah. I said, okay. I said, I get that. The governor they need to balance the budget, you'll get your money. But I said, I really think I can buy this facility for like 20 cents on the dollar. Really? And I said, yeah. I said, loan me an extra $1 million, give me $3 million. I can turn this around because I needed $1 million to clean up all the debts and do some sprucing up. He said, okay.
So you owe him money, but you're asking him for the $1 million.
I asked him for $3 million.
Okay.
But it was an $8 million debt that I was going to get for $2 million, and I would clean it up for $1 million, so it made sense. All right, so if you could do it.
It takes guts, though.
Well, listen, you just got to know that that's the solution. Otherwise, here's the keys, buddy. So you'll love this.
Oh, wait, before we continue. Now, all this with 3 children.
Oh yeah.
By yourself?
My mother on occasion would help me out and watch the kids. On this trip, when I was going back and forth to California.
That was rough, though.
Oh, it was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. But, you manage. And, if they wanted to eat, they had to learn to cook. If they wanted, clothes, they had to learn to do laundry. If they wanted to, have things from me, they had to clean the house, they had chores. So they all 3 of my kids can cook like you can't believe. My sons can iron.
That's because they're Italian.
Yeah, that's true. But they can also iron better than any housekeeper I have ever had.
That's great.
And so they're very self-sustaining and very motivated.
So while you were learning survival mode, they were learning the same thing too?
Yes, they know it.
That's awesome.
They know it. And, there's a lot of interesting stories about that. Joey.
Okay, so now where are we at?
Okay, so this guy says, come to New York. And he tells, bring your lawyer. I said, I plan on it. So I go to New York that was Friday, Sunday. I go up there. My lawyer and Harry Reidler and I go out to this guy's house. And he was just a thug. And we go into this gorgeous mansion. And we're telling him the deal, what we can do, and he sits back and he goes, I like it. He says, but I've changed my mind. I said, okay. He said, I just don't think you're creditworthy enough. He said, but you're going to sell it to me. I said,
what went through your mind at that moment, though? Before, when you tell us what you said, what went through your mind?
And I'm thinking, literally, I'm doing the Toyota kick because I don't want this thing. It's out in California. There's hooker hotels.
So you're bluffing right now.
Oh yeah, totally. And I'm doing Toyota kicks, but I'm going like, Harry, can he do that? He goes, yeah, I think he can. I said, I said, okay. I said, but you have to give me $50,000 so I can pay Harry and pay a few of the things that we have to do. He said, okay. 5 days later, 6 days later, whatever it was, Harry calls me from the guy's office. And he goes, he's not giving you the $50,000. I said, really? I said, okay. pack your suitcase up, briefcase, you have a briefcase? Yes. I said, pack your papers up. I said, leave. And only if he asks you, tell him you're going across the street to file bankruptcy papers. But don't offer it unless he asks. So he does that. And as he's getting ready, he goes, what are you doing? He says, I'm going to file bankruptcy papers. Guy picks up the phone, calls me up. I go, wire the money. And I hang up. He wired the money. He got the deal. 6 months later, I got a call from the New York Times Criminal Investigation Division. This guy was trying to buy the New York Post. And none of the newspapers liked him or wanted him. They knew he was a bad guy, but they couldn't find anything on him. I gave him the roadmap. I told Harry, I said, could you hold for a moment, please? This Diana Henriquez calls me. She's still there. And we talked several times. I said, Diana, could you hold on a second? And I called Harry. I said, I want you to talk to this woman. Tell her everything that happened. What he did was he bought the asset in his girlfriend's name and put the note, the bonds, in her father's name. And he used Towers Financial's cash, which was a public company, to buy it. So he was defrauding.
That's all they needed.
He was arrested the following Monday. She called me a week later. She called me and she goes, get out of town because we're arresting him. And I'm leaving and I'm worried about you as well. And they arrested him. He went to jail.
Wow.
Yeah. And I got rid of that place. It was
So now, where are we at on this part?
Okay, so now, meanwhile, I have the Georgia facilities that the guy stole the $1 million. Then I had that. This is all the same deal because.
But now you're living a better lifestyle, though.
You know,
Like
I'm okay. You know, I'm paying a mortgage.
Yeah.
I have a place. My mom helped me, you know, get a place. I put it in her name. And
Okay. And you're what age around now?
I'm.
Probably 30?
Let's see. I'm 40.
Wow.
I'm 40.
So
I'm
it
in my
was 20 years of
Yeah, I was.
sacrifice.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm like 40, and I knew that if I didn't grow, that I'd never get out of the hole.
What do you mean by that?
If I didn't buy more facilities,
Okay.
get more volume. So I went on a buying spree.
Because usually you get in the comfort zone. You're like, okay,
No. There was no way.
Well, I'm saying the average
I don't forget, I started down here. I'd dig out of the hole before I could get even. So I'm still down here.
Okay.
So the only way that I saw that to happen was to just keep buying, get more revenue. And that's what I did. I went out and I bought facilities in Tennessee and then in Kentucky. And I bought what nobody wanted.
Why didn't they want it?
Because they were small, not small, they were in rural, small towns.
Okay.
And rural facilities in Tennessee and Kentucky, mostly Tennessee. And they were broken. The first couple ones that I bought, they were getting ready to shut them down. And
So why did you get them?
because nobody wanted them, and I got them for next to nothing, and I was able to
But you
finance
knew
them.
you can
I
turn them
financed them at 125%. That means, so if I contracted them for $2 million, I got $2,250,000 because I had to make the first payroll, and I had to put food in there. Okay, so and you don't get paid; you get paid in arrears. So I had to make sure I had a sufficient amount of capital to get over the hump, and I did that, and I just started buying and buying, and I went from 4 facilities to like 20 in the first couple of years.
Okay.
And then some of the banks started recognizing that we were turning these facilities around, really making, the one that was getting closed became a model for the state for their training.
So then the loans came in like no problem.
Well, no, I never. Still, I'm dealing with REITs that we would take bad assets off their balance sheet, put them on my balance sheet, and we would turn them around. And usually they're
What's the turnaround time?
12 to 18 months.
That's not bad.
Very quickly. Yeah, because we never focused on the bottom line. We focused on clinically, physical, plant, and changing. I always said to my people, listen, 2 things. 1, the money will come, do the job. You take care of these patients, take care of these employees, the money will come. If you don't do that, forget about the money, it's never coming. Don't you worry about that. You just concentrate on doing the job.
But you believed it in your heart too.
But that's what you got to do. So if I had 120 beds, I'd have 120 patients and 120 employees. It's 1 for 1 overall, all departments. It's 240 people. Now, multiply that by all their family and everything. So I was the largest employer in most of the towns I was in. So we had facilities that relied on us. And we were the best. When I sold out at HQM, we were up over 100 facilities. We were recognized as the best operators out there.
And when the facilities, were you hands-on? Like you would
Very
go
much.
see
Oh,
them?
they all. And then, of course, my son gets involved in
Which one?
94, Paul,
Paul,
my older son. And I'm out there in the facilities traveling around, and he's in the office and running the show. And then we go through the Balanced Budget Act, which was devastating. 75% of the nursing home operators were in bankruptcy. It was huge, huge. The Clintons literally decimated the reimbursement. They knocked it down 17%. You can't survive, especially when you're on margins of 3, 4, 5% at that particular time. And that's when I got really political. And I'm on the phone with Tommy Thompson's office begging for money. You've got to turn this around. Everyone had lobbyists. I did it. And I literally had George Bush, after when he took, by yelling at him, "You've got to do this." And it happened. And then, we sold out in 2007.
And then what happened then when you did the sellout?
Well, my son convinced me, and rightfully so, that the model was changing and drastically changing.
Right on time.
But, the reimbursement model was changing. It's that fee-for-service was not going to sustain itself. And it was reverting to, or not reverting, it was going to go to a value-based system where if you do not take risk, you are not going to be in the business. And that's really what healthcare needs to be. In other words, outcomes. You're getting paid today, whether that patient survives, gets better, or whatever. It's getting the same amount of money as I'm getting, and I'm outcome based. I send you home well. So it's...
So in 2007, your whole script changed because you're done. Now you're...
We exited. We had several CONs, certificates of need, and we went back to the drawing boards and purposely built facilities that targeted value-based healthcare, and that's where we are today. And we're moving down that path.
Wow.
Literally changing the face of healthcare.
That's amazing. In the process of all this happening, your children grew up, and they've been part of your companies?
So Paul was an
CEO.
employee of my former company, and he had some of the membership interest.
Did he go to school for that, or?
He went to accounting, yeah. He didn't get the healthcare background. He got more of an accounting, and that's really where his expertise is.
So it's the same process that you did, self-taught?
Yeah, he's totally
Hands-on.
self-taught. Joey went to Lynn University and got a degree, and he is in marketing, and he works for his brother and me right now.
It makes sense.
Yes.
That's why we're here,
Yeah.
because of Joey.
Yeah.
That's marketing.
Exactly. And then Stephanie has a juice business.
What do you mean, the juice business?
It's a cold press organic juice business.
Okay.
We'll give you some. It's really good. You should get on that.
There's a quote that you say, and it was in one of the articles I read that says, well-behaved women rarely make history.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that?
Can't play by the rules. I mean...
And you're still like that?
Oh, yeah. Listen, if I would have listened to everyone tell me I can't, we wouldn't be sitting here today. Do you know who said that? Well-behaved women rarely make history?
No.
Eleanor Roosevelt.
Wow.
Okay? And she was definitely not well-behaved. Okay? She did not play by the rules that were specified at that time. If you go around the world and you look at women in different environments, we are so fortunate here. They're raving about Hillary becoming president. There are women presidents. I mean, the Mary Robinson. There's the woman. I mean, they're all over the place. She's not the first woman president. It's a great for us.
First in the United States.
First in the United States, but then you go to Afghanistan or Pakistan, and you see women that are literally covered because that's the stifling, but the part of it. So I think that watching women evolve is very important for me.
From where you came from?
From where I came from.
To now, and it's huge.
I'm never going to have anyone tell me I can't do something. That's like a challenge to me. That is like, you know,
but do your children have the same attitude when someone tells them they can't do something?
In a different fashion, yes. They are more subtle. I had to be tougher because, you know, go back 25, 30 years.
All men, business.
Yeah, it was a different world. Today it's a lot easier for them to, you know, move out there. Women in business today, it's the norm. Go back, there weren't. You know, my era, it was just very unusual. There was a handful.
What gave you because you get to a certain level of success and you start, you know, you remember you first said, well, you know, if I can make $10,000 a month, that would be a good, but you know, you started.
That was food money.
Well, yes, I'm saying.
That was like, that was survival.
That's Italian food money.
Yeah.
Cuban food is not that much.
No, but I'm saying it was making sure I knew I was in high.
No, I get it, but what I'm saying is you've always had that drive of you wanted more success, you want to be able to, you know.
All right, so what we're doing now is different. You know, now
not with the industry. Okay. I'm saying just overall in your life. You've always you've never settled for less.
No, I'm not going to sit back and how do I put this? I'm going to challenge aging. And when I say that, I want to age appropriately, but I want to age healthy. I don't want to be like a lot of the patients in my nursing homes that were hunched over and, you know, couldn't breathe, couldn't walk, couldn't talk. I will age, but I'm going to age healthy. So that means it's a lifestyle. I eat, I train, I work out.
But you did that also when you were younger.
Not as much.
Okay.
You know, I pushed myself a little more. I didn't have the time then to, you know, work out and run that I have now. And I put forth that effort because I wanted.
How much time do you put into it now?
Probably 2 hours a day.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I know.
But that's great.
It is.
Every day? 5 days, 6 days?
5 to 6 days. You know, I'll take one day where I totally chill.
So it's part of your life now. It's not like you're putting in the time.
No,
it's part of your lifestyle.
Without it, I would hurt. And I know that. So, and I don't want to hurt. I've been in a situation where I've not felt good, where I've had back issues. I don't have those issues anymore because I have literally sought out the answers and healed myself.
I also read that they actually named the library after you. What do I got to do to do one of those?
Well, you got to.
That's what I want to hear.
Write a big check. So Scripps is my real passion. And I saw Scripps when it came here, and this is an incredible story, but it's so true. I have angels that sit on my shoulders.
But you truly believe that?
I know it. It's not I believe it, I know it. So I was sitting at my desk at my old house, and I read in the paper where the governor, they were going to bring Scripps here. And I said, wow, it was like the future. I saw the landscape of South Florida literally changing with that institute coming here to Florida. And I said, I'm sitting at my desk and I said, I want to be appointed to that board. I called the speaker because he could choose Senate President, Senate President and the governor. He had three, each of them had 3 picks. He said, yeah. And I'm just, okay. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay. My phone rings and it's the governor's office asking me if I would go on the board. I swear, exactly that happened. And I said, yeah. And I'll never forget.
That's what you wanted.
I wanted it.
So you kind of attracted it.
You know, I made it. I wished it. That's what I wanted. I said,
Well,
I
in
want to
today's
do
world,
this.
they call that law of attraction.
Yes, okay.
So that's basically what
That's
you
the
did.
secret.
Yes.
Okay, so.
There's no secret.
Yeah, it's the law, but that's the book, The Secret.
Yes, yes.
That's what I wanted, and I just said, I want to do this. Because I wanted it, because I have 5 granddaughters. I want them here. I don't want them to leave South Florida in search of a job in tech or whatever, because there's no jobs here. And we don't have anything other than tourism. What do we have? Nothing.
Right.
This will be huge. And I saw that, and I still see it, and I know it's been a long term coming, but you know, all the research parks around the country have taken 20, 30 years in the making. And I am consistently behind it. So I have donated millions of dollars to Scripps, and I plan on continuing doing that. And they wanted me to pick something to put my name on. And I had the auditorium or blah, blah, blah. And one of them was the library. I said, I want the library.
Yeah.
I want the learning. Because I didn't have the opportunity to go to school. Because in the Italian household, my brother went to Fordham. We were a year apart. I don't need to go to school. You stay home, get married, have babies. That's not happening. I went to the local Rotary Hill College, which is now Davian College, but you know, I got married. So I never had that opportunity.
If you could go back in time, would you have gone to school?
Yeah, but nothing can take place of what I have also.
Yeah, I'm more of a believer of hands-on.
Yes, but I also think if I would have had a little more knowledge, I wouldn't have made some of the mistakes I made.
Yeah, but if you didn't make them, you wouldn't even know they were mistakes.
But I'm talking, you know, ones that were just book knowledge. You got to have some book knowledge. I'd rather do what I'm doing. There are more derelict geniuses out there, and you know, to me, you know, it's drive, ambition, and intelligence, and in that order. Intelligence is the least necessary.
And how do you maintain your drive?
It's just innate.
Innate.
It's there.
And then you said drive,
I don't stop.
vision.
So my trainer that I work with, most of his clients are half my age. No one has the drive that I have. It's just there. I am strong, like pulling through Charlie. How do you manage?
Well, before, I would like to talk about Charlie.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your 3rd husband, right? And you said it was a lifetime to find someone like that.
I waited till I was 62 years old and married him on a mountaintop in South Africa. And it was just us. It was so beautiful. It was it was unplanned. It was not, I mean, there again, 24 hours, I got the government of South Africa.
How did you guys meet though? Before
blind date.
Really?
We were introduced, and he fell madly in love with me. And
What about you?
I thought he was nice. I liked him, but you know, I didn't envision myself with this. You know.
For him, it was like that's it.
He got it right then and there,
you were like-
and he came down the next week. He stayed for a week, and I wasn't rude, but I'm sort of like, okay, you can leave now. You know, I didn't envision myself with this guy. It was like he was not the one for me. And I literally pushed him away, but he was happy to be my friend, and we were friends. And every year he would send me flowers on my birthday, Valentine's Day, and Christmas. He would always text me. And 2011, I'm sitting right here, Christmas morning. I just moved into this house, and I came in here, and I had my little dog, and the kids were here the night before. We had our first Christmas here, and it was all my brothers were here, all the kids. It was huge. And the house was perfectly clean, and I'm sitting here. And I'm sort of reflecting on my life, and I'm looking around, and I'm saying, wow, look what you've done.
Wow.
Looking at the art, the beautiful house.
And how old
built
were you
this.
then?
This was a couple years ago.
But that's when you finally.
2000.
That's when you actually stopped. to
I
really
just,
take that
I
moment.
said, wow. And then a tear came to my eye, and I'm thinking, and I'm alone, and I thought, how dare you feel sorry for yourself? How dare you? And I just did this, and I said, and it was like this relief that I knew that, okay, if that's what God wanted for me, was to walk alone, then so be it, because my blessings were amazing. In spite of all the pain, in spite of all the absolute struggles and everything that I went through, I still had healthy children, healthy grandchildren, incredible success. Yes, a lot of, people taking stabs at me, but
That comes with everything.
that comes with everything. I still was blessed. And it was like this relief.
But that's amazing. In that moment that you knew that I made it,
This was it.
and
And
I'm alone.
then in New Year's Eve, I got a text from Charlie, Happy New Year. And I text him back, Happy New Year. And then he texts me and he goes, when can I come see the new castle? And I didn't text him back. So Valentine's Day comes, he sends me flowers.
Persistent.
Yeah, and I got a bunch of bouquets, but this big one from Charlie. And I just smiled, and I texted him, and I said, or I called him. I think I called him. I can't remember. And he doesn't respond. So like 4 days later, I call him again. I go, Charlie, what's going on? And he answers the phone. He goes, what do you mean? And I said, I called you to thank you for the flowers. And he goes, I've been in Cuba. And he was bird hunting. And I said, oh. I said, well, thank you. That was really nice. And I wanted to see when do you want to come down for a visit? He says, let me call you later, because I'm at the office. So he called me that night. And we made a plan for the 23rd of March. And he came down, and that night I told him I was going to marry him. That night.
Wow.
And 3 years later, to the day.
What did he say though when you told him?
He was crying, just tears. 3 years later, on March 23rd, 2015, he died. 3 years to the day.
Wow.
That's just, and I turned the world upside down trying to save him, but he didn't. He was.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole different seminar and topic interview, because when I saw the interview, it's like if it would have been caught sooner, and there's just so many,
a lot of what ifs. It was like, I think everything in my life has a purpose. Losing my father took me from being a spoiled little brat to a strong woman, selling a nursing home, getting into the nursing home business, and now totally changing. Like I said, this is different. This is literally, this is all about outcomes. So the winner here is the patient. And when you get paid, if you perform, you're saving money at the same time. So it's a win-win-win. The government says, if they're going to write a check for $1 trillion or whatever that number is, here it is. And you only get it if you get performance.
That's amazing.
That's powerful.
And
it's the only business today, currently, that there's no value.
Are you not afraid that things are going to change? Because right now we're going with the...
It has nothing to do with Obamacare. It has it's the Accountable Care Act.
Talking about the Trump and the Hillary and...
Yeah, that has nothing to do with healthcare delivery. There's only so much money. This is the bottom line. And when your budget and you're growing in health like this, you got to stop it at some point. And it's waste. There's 47% of waste in healthcare today. Absolute waste.
47.
So we're just capturing the waste. When you do the right thing, it normally comes out in the right place.
Before we go in closing, there's a few questions I want to ask you, personal questions.
Okay.
Like, I sell to the masses and not the classes. That's been written up before. Is that something you really quoted? What do you mean by that?
Well, in the business that I had, home quality management, which was the nursing homes, they were mostly Medicaid patients. The government paid them, so that's masses. When you're in senior housing, it's not government pay, it's private pay, so that's the terminology. So I dealt with the masses, not, the elite.
Yeah, well, a lot of people do that. I do it too. When I do seminars, it's the masses.
It's exactly.
Then coaching itself is the classes, because they can afford it.
Right.
So
right.
But
when you have a private pay individual, those numbers are small. I dealt with the masses.
Nice. And then what's your family time like? Like right now, what do? You have 5 grandkids, you have your children, they're all close by.
They're here every day. I've talked to Stephanie 4 times today,
So
Joey twice.
You're like a true Italian, all about family.
Oh, it's nonstop.
What's your family motto?
La Familia.
La Familia. I love it. There's obviously, you love luxury, obviously. Have you always been like that? Or how did you get the bug?
Well, my love of art I got from my mother-in-law, Irene. And my daughter's was in the art business, so she really curated this collection. You know, I've always had great clothes, even when I was a kid. And it's just part of me.
So even when you didn't have money, you always carried yourself?
Always. What I've taught my children, and even my granddaughters, we went to a ball this year, they were all in my gowns. I took them in a little bit, and I told them, I said, these gowns will be here for 20 years. They'll be here for the next 20 years. And I've taught them, if you take care of something, it'll take care of you. So, I mean, there's stuff in here that I've had, that dining room is my mother's.
Dining room is beautiful.
Yeah, so it's all my mother's. And I've taught my children the value of having history and valuing it and taking care of good things.
What's your most prized possession at the moment?
My children.
Beautiful. What was it like to meet Pope John Paul II?
Oh my God. He is truly was a saint. I mean, I literally had tears in my eyes.
In the Vatican?
I was at the Vatican. It's 25th celebration of his 25th year of the papacy. A very small group of people, and I literally, tears in my eyes, just flowing out of me. I have a picture. He's giving me a rosary, and I'm giving him a picture of my brother who had colon cancer and who I wanted to take with me. He wasn't well enough to travel, and he said he'll be fine, and he is.
Wow.
And he is.
That was an amazing
experience. My God. So when I was going through all my drama with the Palm Beach Post, and it was horrible, and it was very difficult and trying on me emotionally because it was hurting, you know, the business, and it was just terrible. I got a FedEx package, and inside it was a medal from Mother Teresa that was given to Richard Lerner, the president of Scripps, by Mother Teresa when they took care of her at Scripps, the hospital. And he said it to me. He said, I think you need this now more than I do, and passed it on to me. And then I met the Dalai Lama.
And how was that? Totally different.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't meet Mother Teresa. I met the Dalai Lama, and it was a very small gathering, maybe 50 people. And
Richard Gere there? No, because he's always there.
Yeah, no, he wasn't there. George Bush was there.
Okay.
And the president got off the stage.
George Sr.?
W.
Okay.
And got off at the library. He walks off the stage, and he sees me, and he comes over, and he gives me a hug and a kiss, and he has this beautiful white scarf that the Dalai Lama just put on him. And he took it off and gave it to me.
Wow.
So I have the Dalai Lama scarf, I have the Mother Teresa's medal, and I have the rosary from the Pope.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but the Pope was really something. He was something.
Because you're a strong Catholic. Yes. And then being able to have that experience is just even added to the...
I'm not crazy about the new Pope, but I really like...
You've been blessed.
Yeah.
Even when
but they're special people.
Right, but when you look at it this way, and someone like looks at the interview and they look at, wow, you know, she's blessed, but they just don't realize, even though you told the story, how much struggles. And to this day, there's still struggle, because Charlie was a couple of years ago.
He died a year and a half ago.
Right. So this is, even when you get
I just went through a very brief period. I was just so sad, and I just couldn't get myself. And I just woke up one day, I said, I can't do this anymore. And I realized I can't change that he died. I can't make sense of it. And I look at the fact that I had him.
And we talked about that before the interview, that we said some people don't even get to meet that special person.
We loved each other. It was 3 years, literally, that we were together, and we packed a lifetime in 3 years. And it was...
And you've traveled everywhere with him?
Everywhere. We went all over the world.
Because you did the Porsche experience.
We did the Porsche thing. We did Africa.
What was that like?
That was a month before he was diagnosed. And he drove, and he didn't want to go. And he was like, I go, Charlie, we're going. And we were supposed to go with a group of friends to Tuscany. I couldn't leave because I was in the middle of some business. So we delayed it a week and ended up going to Croatia, just the two of us. It was perfect. It was just beautiful. He loved it. He goes, I really like this. I said, I told you, because he was all about bird
Fast
shooting, and no, I'm the fast car
you're into
person. I'm into the fast cars. He loved it, absolutely loved it. And we were going to go back, but didn't work out.
But at least he experienced it.
We experienced everything. Italy, we were on a yacht in the south of France. We did, I mean, it was just like so perfect. I know that Charlie died and did everything he ever wanted.
Wow.
And it was beautiful. And he had no pain. And he knew how much he was loved. And he had children and grandchildren that he never had before. Because he was a bachelor. He never had any children.
Really? Wow.
No.
So he had.
And my kids adored him.
I saw the
literally.
When I saw the wedding video, your son, there was a part, because it wasn't edited correctly, it was like pretty raw.
Yeah.
And he says, I love you.
Yeah.
And the little piece there. And
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's.
And you should have seen Paul at the funeral. He couldn't, I mean, they adored that man. And it was very mutual. I mean, these were his kids. And the grandchildren, the one that's 9, I think she still cries. Addison. I mean, there was a bond between them that was unbelievable.
2 more questions. I just get to, because you threw in fast cars. You've always been into fast cars?
Always, my whole
What's
life.
your favorite one?
The one that's in the garage, my Shelby Cobra. I found it and bought it back. It never.
What do you mean?
I had it when I was 16. My dad bought it for me, and 40 years later, I found it in Buffalo.
The same one?
It's the car.
What?
It's in the garage.
Wow.
Yeah.
You do have angels.
Yeah, I do.
Because
Oh yeah, they
the odds of that
listen. When I put up roadblocks, a lot of times I put them up myself. But I will tell you, there is definitely a God up above. No
That's
question.
Beautiful. And you believe that?
Without a doubt.
Right now, talking to you, the whole interview. Number one, I'm really grateful for this opportunity, but it's also your energy. Not only did I capture it, when I saw it on video before, I was like, sometimes, you meet people, and I've traveled the world.
I was so raw in that video. That was.
But you were
yeah.
so real.
But I was.
It's not just
it took
raw, you were
everything.
real.
I mean, they stopped a few times.
I know, you told them to stop, but the thing is, not even that video, even the wedding video, and you were so real. And then I've interviewed people all over the world, and a lot of times it's like, well, that's not how you really are. And so, no, you are, not only are you the same person, but much better, because you can feel your energy. I feel your vibe, and it's a beautiful thing.
I am what I am.
Yeah, you are awesome.
That was Yogi Bear.
So, last thing I want to tell you, if you want to leave a message to anyone that's, women, especially women that are challenged and they think that, they need a man in their life, or they, give them some advice. What's one advice you would give someone?
It's easy. First of all, dream your dreams and live your dreams. And don't let anyone tell you you can't, because you can. Opportunity is here. We still can do anything we want. No one's going to hold you back. The only one that holds you back is yourself. And my biggest message to women is women need to support each other more than they do. There's too much cattiness, there's too much suppression by women to other women. I gave a speech one time at Credit Suisse to all the women executives. And I get up there, and some of these girls come in, they got ties on, suits on, they want to look like a man. I said, why? Why do you want to look like a man? Why do you want to be a man? If that's your choice, okay. But if you're really a feminine woman, be a woman. You don't have to deprive yourself of being pretty or attractive. Be that person. And don't deny that. And be strong about that. I said, I'm going to tell you, 9 chances out of 10, a man's going to do the job with you over a man if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, then it's not the case. I got the first question. How big is that diamond? I started to laugh. I said, it's what it was, and I bought it.
It's 5 carats. It doesn't matter, but go ahead. I did it for you. It's okay.
Yeah. But that's what I would say, because I saw a lot of women that don't support other women.
So of all the questions, that was the first one they asked? And that's one of the reasons. I mean, women, like you said, and not only that, society itself, people don't support each other. That's much as they should.
Men support. There's a better bond between men than there is women.
And why do you think women are like that?
I don't know. I still see it, and
jealous.
I don't know what it is, but it shouldn't be. And I try to make a conscious effort to support women. I had the women mentoring program here a few months ago, and it was empowering. A young girl from Fort Lauderdale, I believe, that was raised by her grandmother, her and her 5 or 6 siblings, watched her grandmother get murdered in front of her, rose out of that, became an RN, works, is married with a child, is trying to help her family, her brothers and sisters, because they were obviously scattered after the grandmother was murdered. Now she wants to become a PA. I paid for it. I said, I'll pay for your education. No questions asked. I'd love you to work for me, but you don't have to. And you would have thought I gave her a house full of gold, but she deserved it.
You gave her what she needed, though.
She deserved to have that one little boost. Every now and then in life, if you can get somebody...
But you didn't get any boost.
No, I never got any.
That's what I'm saying.
But that's why I try to do that. It's like I tell my kids, okay, you made a mistake. Not a problem. Learn from it. If you don't learn from it, then you're wasting that lesson. Because everything you do is a lesson. Good or bad, it's a lesson. Learn the lesson. If you don't learn it, then shame on you.
And usually you go through that one lesson one time, right?
Well, sometimes I've had to.
You try to catch it.
But what I also try to do is really correct myself. Like, there were things that my mother did that I didn't like, and I don't want to do that. I'll do something and I'll say, there I am, I'm my mother. And, I'll say it to, my daughter. I said, well, sound just like your mother. They look at me. But it's true. Take what's good in your lessons and leave behind the bad. There's no reason. It's like a man that was raised being beaten is going to beat, unless he really works at, I'm not going to do that. And it's conscious. It takes conscious effort. You really have to do it. But most of all, I would say, live your dreams. I have a plaque in the kitchen that pretty much says that, and I display it.
Live your dreams.
Yeah, you got to live your dreams.
So we'll leave them with that. Live your dreams.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're the best. Can I have a hug?
Yes, of course.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You are awesome.
Thank you. You guys were great. Thank you.
Register online and join us today for all new live interviews and weekly topics only at themastermindcircle.com.